if this fall hasn't been intense enough, if 2025 hasn't been intense enough for you enough already, then this new moon in Libra on October 21st should do it for you. I am Nikki, your astrologer, here with Illuminated Movement Astrology to talk about the new moon in Libra. This one is a rough one. Usually, when we think about Libra, we think about peace and harmony and relating and beauty, stuff of that kind of nature. But this new moon really doesn't have that kind of flavor at all. There's three major aspect patterns that are all pulling for attention in unequal ways. Hello, Libra. And then there's also Venus, the ruler of this new moon, being unaspected, hanging out by herself. So it's a lot to break down here. Let's jump into the chart and let you know what's going on and how the heck you can start to try and work with this crazy energy. All right, so here's our chart. And over on the left side, you can see here's our new moon. The moon and the sun are together at 28 degrees of Libra. So this new moon taking place on October the 21st. It happened early in the morning if you live on the West Coast of the United States in Pacific time, like myself, or it happened a little later in the day or the evening, depending on where you live in the world. But either way, this new moon is funky. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the three different aspect patterns, beginning with there's two that are hitting the new moon itself, and one where the new moon is one of the legs of the pattern. Okay. So the first one here is a yod. And we're talking about this Uranus in Gemini, retrograde. It's at 0 degrees. So that already makes this planet more powerful. Whenever a planet is at 0, it gives it more of an emphasis. We're talking about it making a little sextile here over to our friend Neptune, also retrograde at 0 degrees, but this time in Aries. So these two planets already have a sextile energy, meaning that they're amplifying each other. Okay, they're giving each other the opportunity to have a louder voice. Now, because these are retrograde, this does throw back a little bit of energy to when these planets first came into their signs, which was towards the early part, mid part of this summer of 2025. And it makes it more internal for us. So it's a time of having to review. What has it been like since summer? What are we working on in terms of what we think? Are we thinking differently? Where are we being challenged in our communication or what we thought we knew or how we express ourselves? That would be that Uranus side, right? Have we had breakthroughs potentially? Possibly upsetting breakthroughs as well. Uranus energy can come in and shock the system, sometimes in a way that's very uncomfortable or even traumatic. It doesn't always have to be that way. It can be a great revelation, like, oh, Eureka, finally, I see an answer I've been looking for. Finally, I see through this person I'm in a relationship with, or this job dynamic, or something that's happening in my family. Finally, I see it, right? Neptune over in Aries is a bit of a challenging combination because Neptune is the great dissolver, right? It takes things and makes them kind of foggy, a little bit glamorous, maybe a little effusive, a little translucent or sparkly. We kind of can't see it super clearly. When we put it in an energy like Aries, that is pretty direct, right? It's a Mars energy. It's a beginning kind of energy. It's a very self-oriented energy. That can give a little bit of a big challenge here as well, because it's like, well, how do I reclaim my sovereignty? Who am I in the world? How do I want to act? Right? Especially with Neptune here, it has to be with spiritual integrity. That's really, really key with Neptune. If things are out of spiritual integrity, if they float over towards the nefarious side, the trickster side, the taking advantage kind of side, manipulative side, that's no good, right? We don't really want our energy to be going there or interacting with people, places, and things that are bringing us into that kind of energy. Okay. So we have kind of that little dance going back and forth with these energies. And then it's making a very uncomfortable aspect. Here's the yod, this triangle in the middle here, that's very like narrow isosceles. I think it's an isosceles, hopefully triangle. If it's not, I'm sure someone will tell me. Pointing to that new moon. So new moons, one of the challenges here is that they're in the dark, right? Because the sun and the moon are together, we can't see the energy, right? It's happening underneath, kind of either it's happening underneath the earth, depending on where we live. And so we can't see it, or the moon is being obliterated by the light of the sun. Okay. Either way, we can't really see a full picture of what's going on between these two planets. And so when we have that kind of energy, when it's in such an uncomfortable type of aspect to both these outer planets, Uranus and Neptune, what it's asking us to do is make an adjustment. Like, this is a very uncomfortable energy that's going to push us in Libra to say a decision needs to be made. Okay. Libra can be famous for not making a decision, right? Avoiding conflict, things of that nature. They also can be a little bit manipulative themselves, right? That kind of energy. We all have Libra somewhere. That wasn't a slight towards those of you who have a sun, a moon, or a rising in Libra. It's just that Libra energy can, because it understands two sides of things, do a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B and kind of go back and forth depending on what is needed, sometimes in a way that pushes it into more of a manipulative type of side where we're playing things to get the outcome we want. And it doesn't have to be a negative thing. When we're negotiating, we do have to do a little give and take, right? We have to kind of weave and bob and move and jib and tack to get to a final resolution. So we just, again, have to be careful of the type of energy. Is it in integrity? Right? Does it work with the inner eye and the inner heart, right? That inner mind, heart, body connection? Or is it working on a different plane of existence? That's something that is really going to come up on this new moon. And perhaps is something that you already know is there. It could be something that you're avoiding, or it could be something that you simply don't see yet because there's not enough information that's been revealed. And at the full moon on the other side, over in the next one, over in Aries, you'll get more information, or even, I can't remember, maybe it's actually happening in Taurus. I should have looked that up before I did this because I have a lot of dates floating around in my head. Either way, Libra as a cardinal sign forces us to interact with other people and to resolve conflict. So we could find ourselves in a space of wanting to peace keep, right? That would be the avoidance of conflict, or be in the peacemaking side where it's like, all right, this is uncomfortable, but I need to face it. I need to work through it, take decisive action so that I can make a more long-term, hopefully stable outcome. Okay, because remember, Libra is the scales. We're talking about weighting things, right? If you've ever done anything that requires a lot of balance, you know it's not about complete stillness and stagnation. There's always a little bit of movement happening. It just isn't so like rocking the boat up and down, right? If you've ever been on a boat in choppy water, not fun. Feels like you're going to be thrown off the boat. You could be actually, right? Or when you're in calm waters, there's a stillness, even though there is some motion happening. And that's very much what's going on with this Libra energy here. So that's pattern number one. There's a couple more I want to talk about. Pattern number two, let me clear all this out so that we don't get confused here. We're talking about that new moon again, okay, in opposition to this Eris Chiron conjunction. So Eris, it's a new planet. It's discovered in 2005 or 2006. And its original name was Xena, which I like a lot better. I don't talk about Eris a ton because I feel like in some ways she's too new for us to really understand what's going on, even though we've been dealing with her for 20 years. I think there's a lot we can learn from this energy. But either way, we kind of have this like warrior, discordant kind of energy, right smack up against Chiron, where we feel wounded, right? Where we feel left out, where we feel othered. Both of these energies are amplifying this, and they're both retrograde. In Aries, the sign of the self, the sign of I can put myself out in the world and get what I want. I can be brave and accomplish things. That energy right now is discordant, and it's happening on an internal level, which we are seeing projected out right into the world. But what's really going on here is the need for an internal reckoning. Okay. Libra also teaches us about other people, right? We learn so much about ourselves from encountering others. If we just sit in a room all day alone, there's nothing to really bounce against, right? Solitary confinement is a very cruel punishment. It's different than choosing to be alone, right? That's different because we can lose our minds, right? We need to interact with other people. We need to relate. So here we're talking about this possibility of, are we, when we're relating, or in our, particularly our one-on-one or our more equally based relationships, are we aware of ourselves and what's going on? Are we complicit in our own silencing? Are we silencing the voices of others? Are we projecting, right? We can all do it. We can all do it. And that doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing. Sometimes we disown parts of ourselves that we just aren't ready to integrate. And they don't have to be bad and nefarious things. There's been so much talk about, shadow work and that sort of thing over the last, particularly 15 years. But longer than that, that's a Jungian term for those of you who are familiar with Jungian psychology. But it's about the parts of ourselves that we disown. And if we look at Chiron and Eris, there's a lot of being separate, of being disowned, of being uninvited, of being othered, right? Against this Libra energy of the other party, the other person, the contract, the negotiation between parties. And so what is it there that's being disowned? It could be a good thing. It could be that you're actually disowning your own sovereignty or authority, right? It's being outsourced into a boss or your spouse or your parents, if that's an inappropriate thing, if you're an adult and it's like you really need to, own yourself now. Where is that part of you that's not allowed to be in the integrated self? Libra teaches us about peace, and peace also means wholeness and completeness. It doesn't necessarily just mean the absence of conflict or the absence of disharmony. It talks about this sense of tranquility from within, so that no matter what is happening, what is pulling you from the outside, internally that you're anchored. And that's how, when we see people who've been these great master teachers, or examples in the world, who are able to face extreme challenges or face very angry people or do things that seem so heroic in some kind of way, because they're able to stay centered. They know who they are. They're comfortable with other people's emotions, other people's conflicts. They don't let it pull them around. So in a lot of ways, we're being asked to emulate that kind of energy. And that might be something that, you're really into and that works for you and you're excited for that kind of challenge. Or that may be something like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start with this. Or it may be completely shut off, where we see people that are still just blaming others, right? They're screaming at someone and accusing them of being verbally assaultive when the other person hasn't said a word. Right? We can see that a lot on the world stage right now. Part of this energy that's so difficult is not only what we just talked about in this opposition here, but there's an energy that's pulling up towards Jupiter in Cancer. Okay, so it makes this thing called a T-square. And what T-squares are is two opposing energies that are absolutely requiring a resolution or an action to be taken at that T square point, okay, at the top of the triangle. So this is something that we can't ignore, is this Jupiter in Cancer, this sense of, well, we also need to belong, right? Cancer is always searching for its own tribe, its own family, its own sense of emotional security, of emotional passion as well. So what does that look like, and what does that mean? Are we sacrificing ourselves to belong? Are we requiring that others do so? Right? There's this whole sense here of, again, unequalness, unbalance here, because there's so much energy being pulled in 3 different directions. So how do we deal with that? And we also, of course, have that yod energy, right? So this is layer number 2 here. So Libra is having to make incremental changes and incremental decisions, okay, actions. Libra is an active sign. It's a masculine sign as well, meaning that the energy is directed outward, okay, rather than inward. We have all of this going on. So we have all these plates in the air. Maybe we're feeling burnout. Maybe we're feeling taxed. What do we do? We need to start taking things little by little, increment by increment, off the scales so that we can kind of chill out and get back to a baseline, right? Or maybe it's the opposite. We need to add things onto the scales. We've been so much in avoidance that we kind of have this blank, stagnant slate where it's like, all right, we got to get things going here, okay? Because remember, Libra is an active sign. It's not passive. So we need to be making decisions. We need to be moving forward, but how do we do that? That's the biggest challenge. If you've ever been on a seesaw, okay, those of you, I think most of my audience is old enough that they've played on a seesaw, and you're kind of, you're going back and forth with another person. Okay, great. And all of a sudden someone else jumps on, whoop, right? And the seesaw tips, or the other person just jumps off and whoop, it drops. It's very jarring, right? So we need to be careful about doing too much, being overly reactive to things instead of taking a calculated, measured approach. How can we do this step by step, little by little? Okay, but we do need to take action. All of these signs, Aries, yes, Cancer, they just take sideways action. It's just a little bit more roundabout. And Libra all demand that we do something, that we encounter life's conflicts and engage with them. All 3 of those require that of us. So that's our aspect number 2. So let's clear this out and let's look at aspect number 3. So again, going back to that new moon in Libra, here we have, it's the point of another T square. Now this one's a little bit of a weak one. It's out of sign here, but I think it still applies. So we've got Jupiter in Cancer again. Okay, that's in square. That's making up one leg of this triangle. But we also have Pluto here, and Pluto is close enough that I think it's making energy here that we can't ignore. Especially because Pluto just went direct as well a few days ago. And so Pluto's speeding back up again. And it's in opposition to Jupiter in Cancer. Okay. And then we have this final leg over here with the energy pointing at that new moon. So we have the yod pointing at that new moon. We have this T square pointing at the new moon, where the new moon is the energetic point. And then we have this new moon as part of a leg. Again, it's unbalanced, right? 2 things driving directly at it, 1 thing pulling or pushing maybe. Okay. So let's talk about this T square. So we talked about Jupiter in Cancer, needing to feel emotionally connected, needing to feel security, exploring what those things mean, needing to belong. Okay. There's something here with this Pluto and Aquarius, having to do with groups and systems. How are they working? How are we potentially, with this Libra here, avoiding conflict, right? With people and groups and things that we've been a part of? Do they fit who we are now? Are we silencing ourselves to stay in the group? Are we suppressing a part of ourselves to stay in the group? Or are we, maybe we're observing that in others, or maybe it's us that's doing it, right? We're giving ultimatums for you to be in this relationship, or for you to stay a part of this group system that we have, you have to do X, Y, and Z. Otherwise, I'm kicking you out, right? Is there something going on here that's creating a really big power struggle? Because I look at this and I think Pluto is power, number one. We're seeing what happens with mob mentality, right? We're seeing systems and things that need to break down, particularly things, and I know this is difficult, and I've been trying to figure out how to talk about this in a succinct kind of way. It's something that I've seen for a while coming, but it's very obvious now. Aquarius is humanitarian, right? It's kind of these altruistic, sometimes the social justice warrior type of energy. The people and things and the visions that want to make life better for the collective, that want a utopian ideal. Okay, both Aquarius and Pisces have that in common, although they go about it very differently. But we're kind of dealing with that right now. Is, what does that actually mean? We're seeing the underbelly of this, because not that those things are bad by any means, because they're not. But what's happened is we're seeing that Pluto is showing us where they've been hijacked. And this is something that makes me personally so effing angry, is that there are bad actors out there. There are nefarious energies that have created charities, nonprofits, communities, etc., that are promising to be helpful, be kind, be inclusive, and they're anything but. Right? They're actually taking advantage. They're manipulative. They're bringing people down. They're controlling them. Right? They're asking them to give up their selfhood, or to give up everything they own. Right? You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. For the sake of the quote unquote greater good, which really isn't it. It just means, no, for our greater good, for us to be in power and use you basically as like our kind of like a slave, right? We're just going to take everything from you and keep it for ourselves. It's a very elitist attitude, but it's coming from things that are altruistic at their core. And again, that's something that just like pisses me off. Yeah, because I very much have that Aquarian, Uranian kind of ideal of, we can build a bigger, better, society. And I'm sick of people who use that as wolves in sheep's clothing for nefarious purposes. I'm going to move on from that. Talked about that too much. Anyways, but that's there, right? And it's in opposition to Jupiter and Cancer, that need to belong, to feel like you're part of something. Okay, to feel like you have family, whatever that is, chosen or DNA, right? Aquarius is more detached in its passion often, but not always, because it's opposed to Leo, right, in the natural zodiac. But both of these things are asking us, what do we feel emotionally and mentally connected to? What matters to us? How do we fit into the bigger picture? How can I feel safe enough to express myself in a group setting? Right? Now we pair that with this Libra new moon, and the question becomes, where are we in the dark? Right? What don't we see about ourselves or others, or our need to belong, or our need to feel secure, our need to have harmony? Okay. How does this, I guess, in a sense is a better way to say it, affect our relationships and our ability to relate? Are we bossy and everything has to be my way or the highway, right? Are we outsourcing our decision making to the other, right? Well, you just pick everything and I'll just sit here and be a doormat. Or, do we have kind of a healthy relationship of give and take? Do we know who we are, so that when we meet other people, we're able to say, hey, yeah, that that vibes with me, that doesn't vibe with me, and hopefully be able to, even if there's a schism, have some kind of ability to repair it, right? To agree to disagree, or to say, wow, I never thought about it that way, or hey, I still don't agree with you, but I love our friendship and that matters more to me, right? All of these kinds of things are really being pulled on hugely right now. And again, we're in the dark about something, either because it's something that we just don't see, like it's subconscious, or again, it's being projected, or information just hasn't been revealed yet. Okay. So what I would say here is, and again, all this energy, I'm going to draw here this yod in, whoop, pointing to the new moon, and the new moon being part of this other triangle. So we have all this energy, hello, sitting at this new moon. It's a ton. It's a ton for Libra to sort through, right? Libra has a great job right now harmonizing and beautifying this big old giant pile of recalibration. Let's say it's a freaking mess. So give yourself some grace too. Libra also has to do with grace, because you can't do everything all at once, everywhere, all the time, right? You're just going to have to make decisions, move forward incrementally, and see what comes up and adjust. And here we go, and adjust, right? Looking for those negotiating spaces as best you can. Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about here is the ruler of this new moon is Venus. So Venus is in her own sign. Okay, here's our new moon here. Venus is in her own sign. So she rules over both Libra and Taurus. And when Venus is in Libra, we're talking again more about relating and relationship. And that could be to another person in an equal type of relationship. Okay, some kind of contract situation possibly. But we're not looking at things like necessarily like parents and kids, right? That's an unequal relationship, especially if the kids are like young kids, right? Or like potentially like a teacher and a student type of thing. Those are more unequal relationships, and they have other places on the zodiac. What we're talking about here is more like people that we're equals with. Okay, our business partners, our romantic partners, potentially our spouse, if that applies to us, potentially even a really close, like a best friend, that type of thing. So Libra, wanting to achieve balance, wanting to achieve harmony with this Venus, what we have to do is understand, well, what's our values, right? What does harmony mean to us? What does beautiful mean to us? What does balanced mean to us? What does wholeness mean to us? And what we find is we don't all necessarily have the same definitions, okay? And that's okay. The Venus symbol also looks like a hand mirror, right? If we held a mirror up to ourselves, and that's also what Libra does, is it mirrors other people, right? We see what happens if I yell at you, how do you react, right? We can kind of figure that out. What happens if I enter into a negotiation with you? What does that look like? Okay. What happens if I'm your doormat, right? All those kinds of things. I'm giving kind of extreme examples here, but all of those things are really, really important. They teach us, right? Other people's points of views help to shape our own in different ways. So when we're holding up a mirror to ourselves, what do we see? Do we see ourselves accurately? If we hold up a mirror to someone else, are we seeing them accurately? Okay. Are we uneven? Are we putting someone on a pedestal, right? Or putting ourselves on a pedestal and someone else at the bottom? These are all things that we have to think about here. And with all the things that have gone on, especially with, I'm going to go back, a little throwback here, but Uranus, and it's John, it's going to go back into Taurus. But Uranus going through Taurus since 2018, how have your values changed? What do you like? Venus tells us what we like. I like that, right? I like this. I like this. I don't like this. That's a very Venusian principle, and it's very important. Again, it helps inform what we find valuable, what we find attractive, what we find beautiful. And then when we encounter other people that have similar vibes, right, what is that like? So all of these kinds of things are asking us to re-examine how have our values changed? Do the things that we like, are they different now? What are we attracting, or what are we attracted to? We have to look at all of that. And what's really interesting here about Venus is she is unaspected. I mean, we could make an argument here for Neptune, but it's a little wide for me. But basically, she's all by herself. So this is like Venus standing all by herself at the top of the mountain, asking you to say, all right, what's going on? When you look in the mirror, what do you see? When you look at other people, how do you see them, or how do you see yourself reflected in them? Okay. What's going on there? What changes do we want to see in others or in ourselves? All of these things have to start from within, right? It's that the old saying, and I forget who it's attributed to firstly, but be the change you want to see in the world. Like, it has to start with you. If you want better relationships in your life, you have to have a better relationship with yourself. And it's not just about like, performative, very superficial Libra things, which Libra can be quite superficial. Okay. It's Scorpio that really gets to the depth. But what is under that surface layer of beauty, the surface layer of attraction? What's really underneath you? What's sitting in your heart, right? What's sitting in your mind? Libra is mental, right? It's social. So what we want to see, what we want to do, the peace that we want to create, the harmony that we want to create, the wholeness has to be from within, so that when we do meet with other people, we negotiate, we're signing contracts, we're in partnership, we're in a marriage contract, whatever it is, we show up in a more whole and centered way. We are really, really needing to do that, because there's so much energy, there's so much chaos with these outer planets changing signs, elements, polarity, meaning masculine. We went from feminine to masculine. We're going from earth and water to air and fire. None of these things are, in a sense, familiar, because we've been in such a long period of things being a certain way. We think they're always going to be that way, but that's not true. Libra, right? The fall equinox shows us, how do we deal with the change of the season? How do we deal when we meet something new? What do we do when life brings us a conflict? How do we want to make the world a better place because we are better for it? Right? There can be a lot of criticism when it comes to Libran energy. We can really nitpick other people. Well, if you were only different, and if you only talked this way, and if you did, and you did, and you did, but where are we? Right? So if you're in a relationship where another person is being very critical of you, right, you find that you're always apologizing, or it's you that keeps saying like, oh, well, I'm so difficult, or I'm a bad person. Really question that. Like, is that actually true? Okay, especially with Uranus and Gemini here, question what you think is true, right? Find that spiritual integrity. Whatever your belief system, whatever you call God or spirit or creative, that animating life force that flows within every living, non-living thing, what does that say about you? What's the truth there? How can you integrate that into your own self, so that when you meet life's challenges and you meet other people, you're doing so from a place of wholeness? You know who you are, you know what your values are, you know how to negotiate, you know how to walk away as well, right? You know how to engage. It's really important that we do these things so that we do find our tribe, our sense of belonging in Cancer, where we feel emotionally safe and secure, because we all need a safe harbor. Even the ones of us that think that we don't, we do. Okay. And how does that fit into the larger picture? that Aquarius, that humanitarian effort, the ways in which we come together and we create things, we create communities that are truly amazing and healthy and vibrant. It's a big ask and it's a big challenge. And again, we can't do it all at once, but the energy is pulling us into these new ways of thinking and being, the likes of which, if they have been done before, it's so many thousands of years that it's passed completely out of, recorded history, at least that we know. Woo! So that's that. All right. So, how are you meeting yourself and others on this new moon in Libra? What does balance look like? What does harmony look like? If you're overburdened, overworked, where do you need to dial it back a little bit? If you've been kind of sitting on the sidelines and letting everyone else take the lead, where do you need to jump in and start taking action, right? Whatever it is, Libra is asking us to take action, to make a decision, and to start moving things forward. Okay. Do the best you can. I know it's a ton of energy. It's a lot. 2025 is a lot. It's a 9-year. It's a lot of endings. It's a lot of conflict already. Next year, 2026 is a phenomenally huge year. It's also a universal year 1, which is new beginnings. So we are on the precipice of a ton of changes, whether or not we fully realized it. I don't know that we can fully realize it before it's actually happened, but we got to do our best to keep things in whatever kind of balance and harmony we can. And it always starts from within. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments how Libra is showing up for you, where you feel out of balance and like you could use a little bit of some grace. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you. Until next time, take care.